Hello everyone, my name is Aline and I would like to welcome you to our podcast Operating with Positive Impact. Today we invited Isabelle Quainon. Isabelle is working at Veolia. She's a Chief Transformation Engagement and People Officer. Welcome.
Hi
Isabelle.
Aline, how are you? Thanks for your invitation.
Thank you for joining our podcast. To start with, would you like to shortly introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So as you said, I work in Veolia. So Veolia is a very large company dealing with environment. Basically, we have three activities: water, waste, and energy. We operate all over the world, and we are 220,000 resources. We call ourselves resources. Maybe I can elaborate a little more on that later on if you wish. On a personal standpoint, I've been in Veolia 31 years. Started in the company after a first experience in a very different business, but then I joined Veolia and I had the chance to have many different opportunities, career opportunities in Veolia. So I've been working in learning and development, in HR, in operations as a BU manager, and now the job I have embraces many different fields of what I've been experiencing before. And I'm looking after the integration between two big business units in Veolia that were built after the merge with Suez. So Water Technologies is basically the part of Veolia that takes care of the solutions that we provide to our customer to address the question of water scarcity.
Okay, wow. So it looks like you have already a very long career at Veolia.
I do. I'm a dinosaur in Veolia, actually.
So did you know up front that you would go in all these different directions, or?
I didn't. But as I said, before I joined Veolia, I was in a different business. And to make a long story short, I didn't find the purpose of what I was doing.
Okay.
I really felt that at the end of the day, what I was doing had no impact at all. I mean, of course, some impact for my customers, for sure. Mm-hmm. But it was like maybe emptying the same bucket, emptying and filling the same bucket every day.
Okay.
And I struggled a little bit with that. So I was looking for something that was bringing more meaning to what I would do, where I could, I would say, maybe make a difference. And then I found Veolia. At this time, Veolia was not very well known because at this time, Veolia was known like a company that was picking the waste, basically. So, not very fancy, not very glamorous. But I thought it really made a difference environment-wise. And so I joined Veolia for this very reason. And to be frank, in the course of 31 years, I never had the chance to see things in another way because I really believe we make a difference.
Okay, that's beautiful. So you started in Veolia because of that approach, that sustainability approach?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Totally.
And still you can, so in all these different positions, you found another purpose on what was still very meaningful to you and adding to...
Yeah, absolutely. And this is probably very much linked to the features of this company. Let me tell you how I see them. And this is a very personal approach. I'm not sure this is the corporate message everyone wants to convey. But I really think that in Veolia, the how matters as much as the what. And I think this is a key point for a corporation. The way you do things, the way you address your business, the way you address your customers, the way you address your markets means a lot in the way you're doing things. And not only what you're doing, but the way you do it. And the way you take care of your stakeholders. I will come back, if you wish, on this notion of stakeholders, because this is very key in Veolia's DNA, I would say, because, of course, you can imagine Veolia is an environmental company. So I would say that ESG is part of our DNA, of course. But the way we address it, I believe, is quite different. And we want to make a difference.
Can you maybe illustrate a bit on how do you do this in practice then?
Yeah, sure. So little bit of history, maybe. How it began, because it's very interesting in the history of corporations to see how things pop up and how how corporations deal with this kind of new ideas, new innovations, we could say, and how they struggle sometimes, and how they succeed at the end of a journey to keep them embedded within the policy of the company. I think that's probably the interesting point. So it all began, I would say, 2017, 2018, maybe, with our former chairman and CEO, Mr. Frérot, who is currently the chairman of Veolia. And now we have a new CEO, Mrs. Brashianov. So it all started with Mr. Frérot asking himself about how we can ensure, I would say, the future of Veolia as a corporation. If you remember, some years ago, there was a lot of challenge addressed to big corporations in terms of how they are useful for the community, how they are useful for the planet. And somehow you have to make sure that you're not going to be challenged, you're not going to be pushed too hard on your business. And so Mr. Frérot reflected a lot on that with a bunch of, let me tell you how we call them in Veolia. We call them the critical friends. So we had a committee with personalities from, the world, the education world, from the business world, from the charity world, whatever. We would gather them in a committee, which we call the critical friends. Why is that? Because, some of them were not aligned all the time with the ideas and with the businesses of Veolia, of course. But somehow it's a tradition of Veolia to challenge ourselves, with people who don't have exactly the same opinions, because we believe it's good for us. It's good for us somehow to be challenged at all times. So with a critical friend, that was the beginning of a process of thinking how we could make a difference as a corporation and somehow strengthen our foundations. And it all ended with this idea of the purpose. And if you want to sum it up in one sentence, Mr. Frérot used to say that a company is not useful because it is prosperous or wealthy, but the other way around. So the idea there is that you have to be useful somehow. What does being useful mean for a corporation? It means that as a corporation, you have multiple stakeholders, and the shareholders are one of them, a very important one, but not the only one.
Voilà. Yeah.
So that's the main idea. The idea is to say a corporation has many stakeholders, and they have to be useful to every stakeholder. They have to create value for every stakeholders and not only the shareholders.
Does that actually bring us to this approach that you created? It's called the
multifaceted performance.
Voilà.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for being aware. We consider in Veolia we have 5 stakeholders. So the first one, when I say first, it's not the right order because you can put them in any order you want.
Okay.
But let's start with the shareholder because this is the easiest part. What do we owe to our shareholder? Well, profitability, right?
Right.
But we have other stakeholders. We have the customer, we have the planet, we have the employees, and then we have the community. Let me elaborate on them. So for each of them, the idea of this multifaceted performance is that as a corporation, we are going to take commitments to each of the stakeholders and not only to the shareholders. Okay. Taking commitments to your shareholder is a very classical way to do business, right? You just commit for revenue, you commit for EBITDA, you commit probably, if you're a listed company like Veolia, for the price of your equity, and so on and so forth. So this is the easiest way, and this is, I would say, the traditional financial quantitative KPI. How does it come when you commit to other stakeholders? Let's take the example of customers, for example. How do you commit to your customer? You will commit with having a very good quality of service, with having the best solutions, of course. But how do you quantify that? How do you make sure that the value you're creating for your customer is sound? Mm-hmm. Well, you can have a KPI, for example, with NPS, Net Promoter Score, which is the way you assess the satisfaction of your customer. Yes. And if you give yourselves objectives on a yearly basis about the number of customers you're going to address with the NPS, the level of NPS you want to achieve, the closing of detractors you want to go for, and so on and so forth, well, you start taking quantitative commitments to your customer.
Well,
and you challenge them.
Let me see. So you're really focusing on that quantifying. So
yeah.
Does that mean that all these KPIs should be quantitative?
They're all quantitative.
Okay.
Why is that? Two reasons for that. The first one is that when you walk the talk, you have to get the metrics. Because if you don't get the metrics, you're never able to showcase that you did achieve your commitment. That's the first reason. The second reason is that we wanted things to be visible, and we wanted things to be visible from everyone, not only our employees, but also our stakeholders externally. So it's a kind of guidance. You know, all listed companies have a financial guidance. So every year you commit to whatever revenue, whatever EBITDA, whatever free cash flow, whatever. It's exactly the same. Every year in Veolia, we commit for a number of, for a decrease of our CO2 emissions. Every year we commit for a decrease of our water usage for ourselves and for our customers. So it's a guidance. Why is that? Because every year we disclose the objective, and every year, at the end of the year, we assess the achievement of the target. And it's a key point because we don't assess ourselves. Okay? We have third parties that come to Veolia to assess the achievement of objectives. And for us, this is absolutely key. Mm-hmm. Why is it key? Because you want to walk the talk. And I'm coming back to what I said earlier. The how is as much important as the what. So it's not only a matter of showcasing ambitions, it's a matter of delivery.
Yeah.
So the execution, for me, is very key.
All right. So you were talking about these reporting standards and yearly commitments that you need to comply to. Speaking about CSRD and other EU regulations lately, do you see them in general as a good thing or a bad thing? Or what is your opinion about it?
We see, as we're very focused on the how, we see every regulation as a good thing. Because a regulation, as the name says, is a way to regulate your market, is a way to make sure that the how is going to be achieved, that the way you do things is the right way. And a regulation is here just to check that the way you do things is the good thing. So we're absolutely okay with regulations. By the way, and we call it the compass, by the way. And I can come back on this if you wish, because this is really what leads us on the way. So our compass is totally embedded into the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And every time we have a new regulation, we just embed it in our sustainability journey. We don't struggle to do that usually because we are usually very ahead of our competition concerning ESG.
Next to complying to these regulations, do you also take some proactive steps to be, like you say, maybe first mover in your market?
Yeah. This is a very important point. Thank you for raising that. Our CEO and our former CEO always want to be first movers in the market. We're a French company. We usually say that on aime faire la trace. We say it in French. It's difficult to translate in English this way, the exact way, but it's exactly the concept you mentioned. To be first movers and to be the ones to set a kind of a tone for the market. This is why we built our compass. So again, our compass is bringing together all our stakeholders. So we're speaking here about our shareholders, about our customers. I didn't mention yet the employees. We take a number of commitments to our employees towards health and safety, gender diversity, engagement, training. We also take some commitments to the planet. Of course, this is quite obvious because we are Veolia, right? Mm-hmm. So, for example, diminution of CO2 emissions, diminution of water usage, whatever. And then finally, we take commitments to the community because Veolia is a very local company. I know it's a global company, but let's call it a local company. We are very local because we cannot decentralize our activities. Okay? When you manage a water network, you're not going to decentralize it. It's a very local one. When you manage an incineration plant, you're not going to delocalize because the incineration plant is going to deal with the local waste. When we recycle the waste, we do it locally. So we're very local. So being embedded in the territories, being embedded in the communities is very key for Veolia. So we take commitments to our communities.
Mm-hmm. I think that brings us a bit to the ambition of Veolia. So on the website, it's written that the ambition is to be useful for society by reconciling human progress with environmental protection. Yeah. So I feel that the human aspect is really key there. People are brought back at the center of your company strategy, like you mentioned before, with the whole compass and the stakeholder framework. What does that actually specifically mean? So bringing the people and...
Yeah. Veolia is a manpower activity. I know this can be a little surprising because, of course, Veolia is a technology activity, but it's a manpower activity. As I told you, 220,000 people throughout the world. We totally rely on our people to make a difference. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I'm not sure this is very politically correct, but the techno can always be brought to the table by your competitors, but the level of quality you bring to your customer, it's definitely your employees. So we pay a lot of attention to that. It's absolutely key. And by the way, the multifaceted performance is all about people. It's all about people. True. Because once you have raised the concept, the idea, well, if I may, you have done the easiest part. and then you have to bring it to life somehow. And you have to make it happen, yes. Right? How do you make it happen? Well, you have to cascade the idea throughout the organization. And how do you do that? It's not a matter of communication, if I may. Well, it's partially a matter of communication. But it's mainly a matter of embodiment for all of our employees of this concept of multifaceted performance. And the best way to do it is to make sure that every employee is aware of their contribution.
Yes.
So in the multifaceted performance, now we have a new version because, we have released our strategic plan a couple of months ago. And so now we have a new version. So we have 15 KPIs. So it's a bit complex, right? It's not understandable upfront. So you have to dig deep in every team, and you have to do it very locally.
Yes.
You have to dig deep in every team and try to figure out how every employee is going to embody the multifaceted performance. So how do you do that? Let me take an example. In water tech, we have a lot of manufacturing activity because we have plants where we manufacture membranes, filters, or whatsoever products that are going to enable our customers to deal with the management of water. If you have an employee, for example, let's say a worker in a plant, we have a plant in Minnetonka, US. How is the worker going to embody the decrease of CO2 for Veolia, the stakes of gender diversity or whatever? Well, we have to narrow the scope.
Yeah.
We have to narrow the scope to the activity of this worker. And maybe at the end of the day, the way this person is going to contribute is pay a lot of attention of the waste that is produced in the plant and decrease the volume of the waste. And this would be his or her contribution.
Mm-hmm. So do you say that these KPIs are adapted?
Totally adaptable.
Like, also because I feel they come a bit top down, but then the workers get the chance to work upon it, to make it.
Exactly. That's the beauty.
To own it.
That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. And it's like a pyramid, but the opposite way. So you start with very wide concepts that all the top management of Veolia understands very well, because they on a daily basis they are just going to drive their activities in order to achieve the objectives. By the way, we can talk about the way this is embedded in the bonus policy, but this is another topic, a very important one. And then you're going to narrow the scope. So at each level of the organization, you're going to define your own multifaceted performance roadmap. For example, Water Technologies is a new structure in Veolia. It has been created 1 year ago. So from the very beginning, and this is the very meaning of the word engagement in my job title, we elaborated in a very collaborative way with lots of people coming from all the functions of the zone. We elaborated our own roadmap. And once we elaborated our roadmap, it went down BU by BU and then team by team to be shaped and to be tailored in order to do exactly what you say, which is give meaning to it and make sure that everyone understands, well, what they have to do at the end of the day.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful.
So this is the beauty of it.
So,
and it has to be flexible. Because if it's not flexible, at the end of the day, you have to commit. You have to commit and you have to deliver. But it has to be flexible, because if it's not flexible, it's exactly what you say. It's top down, no one understands, and at the end of the day, nothing happens.
Mm-hmm. So, and these KPIs are followed up on a yearly basis then?
Yeah, all of them followed up and disclosed.
Yeah, okay.
And disclosed.
All right, so that's a lot on the people part. So we talked a bit on the internal versus the external, the customer part, and also shareholders and so on.
Yeah.
Do you think that local governments, or maybe even federal or states, also play, which role do they play in your
They do play a role. I will not provide you with a whole list of all our stakeholders, but you can find this very easily on our website. But we have many. And a lot of them are governments, actually, because don't forget that Veolia has a 50-50 breakdown of activities between industries and local authorities like mayors or whatsoever, let's say municipal activity.
Okay.
So there are customers up front and there are partners and our stakeholders. The way we embed them into this journey, we embark them into this journey, is what we call the +1. So this is a very, let's say, candid way to say things in Veolia. So the +1 is basically what we call ecology turned into action. Okay. So what do we do in +1s? We invite some of our stakeholders. It can be governments, it can be mayors, it can be customers, it can be charities, it can be whatever, our partners, I would say, and we're going to ask them to come and discuss with us and challenge us on our objectives. It's pretty much the same as we did with our critical friends some years
exactly.
ago. So you may think that we're a little, we like to hurt ourselves in Veolia, but we don't. The thing is that we believe to stay, to move forward on our businesses, we really believe we have to be challenged.
Yes.
We really believe we will never be the only owners of the truth on our business. So we need to be challenged. So we have this tradition of challenging ourselves. So the plus one is basically bringing to the table all of our stakeholders, not all together, but we do that in all the geographies of Veolia, and we ask them to challenge us. So it's a kind of stakeholder dialogue. I will call it a stakeholder dialogue on the challenge of ecological transformation, which is basically our business. Mm-hmm. Behind this, you can see that what is really important is the idea of collaboration. We never believe that we can do things on our own. Mm-hmm. This is why it's very important for us to have this allies strategy, so to work with people outside of Veolia. So it's an open source program, and the plus one is an open source program. But again, with this idea of engaging with stakeholders and basically challenging ourselves.
I'm actually really happy you mentioned the word collaboration, because throughout the whole podcast, we felt that this is a bit the red line, like it's coming back all the time, because it's the basis of sustainability. Is like what you told us as well, the stakeholder network and so on. It's all about collaboration and working together to obtain the same goal. And also talking about all these challenges towards collaboration, because I'm sure not everyone is always having the same goal or the same purpose in an action. There must be a lot of challenges. I don't know, what do you see as the next biggest challenges for Veolia that are coming up?
Well, probably avoid collaboration would be the next challenge, because, collaboration is a silver bullet. It's a silver bullet. There's nothing you can do in today's world without collaboration. Mm-hmm. I would say that working without collaboration is really the old-fashioned way, something that worked very well for years, but that doesn't work anymore. You can witness that in every situation. You can witness that in business. You can witness that in leadership. You can witness that in your everyday life. It simply doesn't work anymore. Yeah. So I think the biggest challenge is now not to convince the people who don't want to collaborate, but not to waste time on this and to go straight to the point, because we need it. We just need it. There's no other option.
No, indeed.
So the biggest challenge, I think, for Veolia as far as ESG is concerned, I would say that the first one would be the cascading towards the employees, because it's a journey for us, but you're never done with this journey. Why is that? Because you always change your KPIs. You have to adjust all the time.
You mean like internal collaboration then?
Exactly. Internal collaboration and the way you embody the ESG to make it, I would say, your day-to-day concern,
voilà.
I would say. So that would be the first challenge. The second challenge probably would be to keep, I think we have it, but we have to keep it, the balance between the different dimensions of a multifaceted performance, because you know how it works. In crisis times, what happens? In crisis times, well, you gear all your efforts towards finance, right? Remember what happened in COVID?
Yeah.
In COVID,
unfortunately,
you just go to finance because, uncertainty, crisis time, what do? You re-gear your efforts on finance. Well, you have to pay a lot of attention on that, because every time you do that, you go backwards. You go backwards, and it's very difficult to keep up and to keep your ambition as it was. Mm-hmm. When we were in the middle of course, we were hit by COVID, like any company, right? our CEO and Mrs. Brashianov, she really made a point about we don't want to quit the ESG part. We are not going only for finance. I want all the objectives to be done and delivered at the end of the year. And when you listen to Mrs. Brashianov, when she released the results of Veolia, she says, okay, I'm very proud because we achieved X revenue, Y EBITDA, but also the million tons of CO2 avoided, and so on and so forth. And I think this is very key. In crisis time, you have at all times to keep the balance and keep your eye on the objective and on the ambition. And the third one, maybe, as far as challenges are concerned, would be innovation, because it's a way, I'm going back to the plus one, a way of keeping yourself aware of what's happening around you and not centrating yourself about what's happening in the company, because otherwise you die. Mm-hmm. So you have to keep up for innovation at all times, keep your openness to all the ecosystem that's around you as a corporation.
Okay. Wow, that's very nice to hear that Veolia really cares about ESG, and even in crisis times that it's one of the basis elements to keep track of.
Actually, I really believe this is a way to survive as a company.
Yeah.
It's not only caring, it's really making sure that the future of your company is bright.
Well, it's indeed not about future anymore. We are talking about now, I would say. Yeah. So I'm really happy to hear that. Coming back to what we talked about now, it was very interesting, and I certainly want to know more about some other specific things. But if we look back on the whole journey, on your career, on what you saw in Veolia and maybe other companies, what is the advice that you would give to your younger self? Or to someone that is joining the workforce now?
I think I would say go girl. Oh no, kidding aside, I have no regrets. Let me share a secret with you. I left a company where I had a long-term assignment for Veolia, who was just providing me with a 6-month contract. Okay, wow. So I took the risk then because I really felt down inside me that was worth it, that this company was worth it. And I was right, because, I was provided the meaning and the purpose for more than 30 years now. And I was provided the career too, because I had lots of opportunities. So I would definitely say go girl. I'm an HR person too, so I very often see young people coming to me asking for advice. So I usually say "go girl," or let's say the polite part, the polite version of "go girl." But I really love this company. I really believe we make a difference.
So from the start that you joined, you really felt this good feeling, like you followed it
totally,
and you
totally from the very very start.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah, up front.
And besides of looking back, if you are looking forwards, what if you could just give one message in every boardroom around the world? What would that be? What would that message spread?
I would always go for looking at what makes a difference. I think when you look back at either your professional life or personal life, what you're looking at is where you make a difference, right? You don't want to go to work and never ask the question of the difference you're making. Mm-hmm. So I think both as a corporation and as an individual, you always have to ask yourself where you make a difference and how you create the best impact.
Okay. Thank you, Isabelle. With this beautiful message, we will close our conversation.
Thank you for the conversation. Thank you very much.
So to all the listeners, thank you for watching or listening. This was the episode with Isabelle Quainon from Veolia. We are really looking forward to the next ones coming up. So stay tuned for more episodes.